Welcome back to the Cryptocurrently podcast. Thank you guys. Thank you, men and women, one and all. Thank you so much for downloading my shows and listening to them and writing in and leaving me messages on Twitter and on my YouTube show. I really appreciate that. I'm having a small measure of success here. I'm doing really well as far as getting new listeners on the podcast, and the way that this works is at a certain point, when I get to a certain number, I'll be able to do like advertising reads, and then companies will pay me money, and then I'll be able to afford more podcasting space, and everybody wins. And it's all because of you guys, and I really just want to take a second to thank you for that. So please keep doing what you're doing. Share the show, share it on your Facebook, hit share on the YouTube show and on the podcast. Let's get the word out. This is the cryptocurrency markets is really, it's unique in the sense that it's, I've never seen a market like this where it was as community oriented as it is. And I like that. I believe that mankind is at its best, a man is at his best in a community. All right, when you're surrounded by friends and you're together with people in a unified purpose, I think that's where the good things happen. Good things. Muzzle, muzzle. Name that movie. All right. Today we're going to be talking about predicting the future. Like Yogi Berra said, the future ain't what it used to be. Yogi Berra used to say these little sayings, and then people would mock him in the news like he was some kind of an idiot. But if you look at what that guy was really saying, you go through all of his quotes, that guy was dropping some pretty profound knowledge. You know what I mean? Like things that probably belong in the book of Proverbs. The future ain't what it used to be. We're living in a very different time. And when it comes to predicting the future, people look at that like it's some big mystical thing, but it's not. Predicting the future is something that you do every day. You do it all the time. It's like, well, if you have to be to work at 8 o'clock, then why is it that you leave your house at 6:45 every day? Well, because there's a certain amount of distance between here and there, and plus I know that there's going to be traffic, and there's 8 stoplights, and I know I'm pretty sure that 6 of those are going to be red when I get there. Oh, I'm predicting the future. You know what I mean? Mathematics. You can see the future to a certain degree using mathematics and using pattern recognition. That's why I never get too down on conspiracy theorists, because your mind is built for pattern recognition, and that's when that starts going awry is when it turns into conspiracy theory. But it's home. The place where that comes from in our minds is pattern recognition. You see it. And you can make predictions in the short term, and sometimes even in the long term future, based on certain patterns. So we're as a futures trader, like that's what we did. And I want to sort of demystify predicting the future and show you, kind of how it's done in your mind as you listen to this podcast, unless you're watching the YouTube show, which I always do. If you guys, I'm noticing I'm getting a lot more podcast listeners than I am YouTube viewers. So if some of you guys want to see this recording being shown, it's on my YouTube channel, the Cryptocurrently on YouTube. Going into today's market, right? Today is Tuesday. As I told you last week and then a couple of weeks ago as well on a different show, I predicted that this week would be rough for Bitcoin in particular, but the crypto markets as a whole. How did I do that? Am I some sort of prophet? You know what I mean? Am I over here cutting the heads off of chickens and practicing voodoo? No. It's human behavior, right? Right now, everybody's getting their bills for Christmas. This last Christmas was one for the record books. People spent a lot of money. Consumer confidence is back in the market. And guess what? Now it's time to pay the piper. You ate the meal, and here comes the waiter with the bill. All right, now everybody's getting their bills this week. And tomorrow is the first round of contract expiration. That's really not going to have that big of a factor, in my opinion, because there's not a lot of open interest on the January contract of Bitcoin, but that's a different story. So the point is, you can use mathematics and patterns to predict the future on a pretty accurate basis. I'll give you one example of that if you're still listening and haven't closed out the podcast because I'm sounding like a crazy person talking about being able to predict the future. Well, if you want to predict the future, let's go to the futures charts, the futures market, okay? Unleaded gasoline. Now, if you go onto the futures charts, you can go onto the CME group and you can see all of the contract months on every single commodity out there, stretching out. I think the maximum is like 18 months or something like that, but no, it's over 2 years. But let's take unleaded gasoline. Right now, if you want 1 gallon of unleaded gasoline from the futures market, it'll cost you $1.84. All right? That's what it costs for January. And I'm sorry, February. That's the February price. But if you go down to the outside contract months, it says that in May, that same gallon of gasoline, if you want to buy it today, it's going to cost you $2.05. Why is that? Why is it that if you want to buy a gallon of gas right now for this month, it's $1.84, and if you want to buy a gallon of gas right now for May, it's $2.05. Well, because it's cold right now. Everywhere north of the equator is cold. So people aren't out there driving and going to the beach and going to the park and doing what they like to be doing because it's cold. But in May, the sun will be out and the kids will be out of school and there will be more demand. That's why. That's why it's factored into the market, because the market makers can see into the future. See? Not that difficult. Make a mathematical prediction and say, well, there's going to be more demand and therefore we must charge more money for that particular commodity. And by the way, that difference, $1.85 to $2.05, in the futures, that is for every 1 penny, and there's 20 pennies there. In a futures contract, 1 penny on unleaded gasoline represents $420. So that's $4,200 times 2 is 84. That's an $8,400 difference in one contract of unleaded gasoline. It just sounds like pennies, but in the futures contract, like that's a chunk of money right there. So predicting the future, it's not difficult, and I'm going to take that one step further as I try to keep this show. I'm trying to form it into, yes, we're going to be talking about markets and making money and how to minimize risk and whatnot, but also like the visceral stuff, like the way that trading these markets is going to affect you, and I'm going to try to do that in a very practical way, right? I want for people to come together as a community, all of us, not just me on this microphone, but all of us together to come through this market and be closer together as people once we're all done. So I'm going to show you something that I saw today in the news. Right now it's, I'm in Far East Europe, so right now it's 9:30 in the morning, which means it is midnight in California, and it is 3 a.m., 3:30 on the East Coast, and I'm going to post this here in a couple hours. But you should be, as you're listening to this, when I recorded this, you were probably asleep. So I'm gonna give you some news that came out while you were sleeping. Now, Coinbase says there was another hack on Stellar Lumens. Another crypto wallet hack sees theft $400,000 in stellar lumens. All right. So just right there, that's not exactly tantalizing you. Oh, by the way, Bitcoin is down to 12,000 and is about to jump into the 11,000 territory. I was right again. How do I do that? How do I see the future? Is he some sort of wizard? Another crypto wallet hack sees theft. $500,000 almost in stellar lumens. All right. You've heard these stories already. Hacks, right? It's become commonplace, hasn't it? Okay, well, we can take just that concept and predict the future with that. Watch. Or in your case, listen. That's a big problem, okay? There were people that, most likely, just regular folk like you and me, all right? Like, I'm not a rich guy, okay? I would assume that every one of my listeners are people that are just like me, get up, go to work, do your thing, raise your family, normal kind of people. I'm not a rich guy. I'm not independently wealthy. And, if I had a wallet, if it had some money in it, with stellar lumens, when somebody took, let's say I had $2,000 in stellar lumens and somebody took 1,000 of that, like that would hurt me. That would threaten the existence and the well-being of my family. That would hurt. You know what I mean? And there's people out there that don't care. They think that I'm rich and therefore I should be stolen from. You know what I mean? Weak people. There are weak people in this world, a lot of them. And some of those weaklings are smart. They know how to do certain things better than other people. They know how to hack into these wallets that already have very expensive and very complicated measures of security, and yet they still get hacked. All right, so what can we, oh, by the way, 11,008 on Bitcoin as I speak. That just happened as we were talking. How can we predict the future from just this sort of news? Knowing that you can go on to CCN, Cryptocurrency News, you can read this story when you hear this podcast. You can go back into the history and just go back 7 days into Cryptocurrency News. You can see another story where somebody else got hacked. And then you can go back another week, so 2 weeks ago, and you can find another story, somebody else got hacked. And guess what? The future ain't what it used to be. Next week, in the news, we are going to read that somebody else got hacked. We can predict that in the future. See what I'm saying? It's not hard. It's pattern recognition. It's mathematics. It's simple. You don't have to be a rocket surgeon to figure this out. Yes, I just said rocket surgeon. You don't have to be super smart to figure this out. So how can we look into this and predict the future and make money off of it? This is where it gets awesome. The fact that this is happening means that there is now a necessity for steeper measures of security. Okay? And the good guys are the people who have all the money. All of it. Right? What was it? Jeff Bezos. He just became, what was it? The richest man in the history of the world. He's not just the richest man in the world. He's the richest man in the history of the world. Right? When Jeff Bezos, he probably has a team of people that have to pick through his toilet to get all the money out after he's done taking a dump. Yes, I just said Jeff Bezos literally shits money. I just said that. So here's this guy, Jeff Bezos, and he's the richest man in the world. Do you think that guy has internet security concerns, and he's got the money to pay for new revolutions in new innovations in cybersecurity? Yeah. Thank God that the good guy's got all the money. Well, good guy, allegedly. I don't know the man, but he's certainly not a criminal. You know what I mean? He did his business the right way. So we can predict that there will be a much greater demand for people who know how to, make the internet and the cyberspace more secure. We know that. We can look into the future and we can see that clearly, and we can make money on it, and we can do that in a number of ways. Yes, if I was to be making predictions on behalf of clients for commissions, which I'm not, all right, you enter into the cryptocurrency market at your own risk. But if I were a trader, a licensed trader, and you were my client, I would be saying to you, you need to look for any cryptocurrency that the company behind it is making the internet a safer place, right? Companies that have to do with artificial intelligence, companies that have to do with cybersecurity, they're tied together, and you can be a part of that, because every week we see somebody getting hacked and people stealing money. People stealing money from average Joe, right? Like if it came out that Stellar Lumens hacked, that one guy, some billionaire lost $400,000, nobody would care, except the guy that got stolen from. But that's not what's happening. Like regular folk, regular people that went to work and worked real hard and made some money, and they went to the cryptocurrency markets and reached down and grabbed a pair and said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try to better my situation in life, because I see this and I think that it's real, and I'm gonna try to make some money. And guess what? Somebody just reached in and emptied that kid's pockets. That's wrong. It's evil. And there's people out there that are going to do everything that they can to bring a solution to that evil. And let me just show you one last thing in your mind as you're listening to this, unless of course you're listening on the YouTube show. But one of the things in that article, I wanted to point this out to you. The article is interesting, and it should be read. It's pretty much like a lot of articles where it's just talking about, hey, there's a problem, and then it describes what that problem. And a lot of times articles like that, it's like Jack Nicholson said in As Good as It Gets. It's like, look, I'm drowning over here, and you're describing the water. All right, and a lot of times that's what these articles are. But this one's a little bit different, because the person who wrote it took the time to say, okay, here's the problem, and here might be one solution. So at the very end of this article, it says, unfortunately, as the price of crypto continues to increase, these attacks seem to be becoming more common. Luckily, the introduction of standard enterprise security procedures to exchanges and wallets will mitigate the damage they can do to the community. Coinbase, for instance, has published a case study on their cloud architecture and operational security practices inside of AWS, an industry-recognized secure hosting provider. Let me read that again, because it unless you dig a little deeper, you're going to miss it. Coinbase, for instance, has published a case study on their cloud architecture and operational security practices inside of AWS. And who's AWS? Well, they are, according to the article, quote, an industry-recognized secure hosting provider. An industry-recognized secure hosting provider. That's a lot of words for saying it's Amazon.com. It's Jeff Bezos. I don't know why he didn't put that in there, but look at this, watch this, all right? Again, predicting the future. Coinbase, for example, has published a case study on their cloud architecture and operational security practices inside of Amazon Web Services, AWS, Amazon Web Services, an industry-recognized secure hosting provider. Okay, well, that's interesting. AWS is highlighted. That tells me that it's linked to something. What is it linked to? Oh, it's linked to this article that says from Amazon. It's AWS case study for Coinbase. And look at this. Why Amazon Web Services. This isn't, you can see this for yourself if you want to, go down the rabbit hole like I did on this article. Why Amazon Web Services? Let me read just this last snippet. So just, if you're driving your car and you got coffee in your hand and the stick shift in the other, just try to be safe and don't text. Let me read this to you. Coinbase evaluated different cloud technology vendors in late 2014. So late 2014 would be 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. But it was most confident in Amazon Web Services, AWS. So Coinbase, Amazon.com. Sorry, Coinbase and Jeff Bezos. In his previous role at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, right? So an actual rocket surgeon. Without, who Without is the guy that this article is about. His name is Rob Without. Coinbase evaluated different cloud technology vendors in late 2014, but was most confident in Jeff Bezos. In his previous role at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Without gained experience running secure and sensitive workloads on AWS. Based on this, Without says that he, quote, came to trust a properly designed AWS cloud. Okay, end quote. Sorry, the okay was not inside the quotes. What can we take from this? What can we extract from just this little bit of information as it applies to predicting the future? All right. Future prediction number one, that we can all see with our eyes. We can see the future, and we can see that there will be more hacks on wallets and trading platforms and all of that. We can see that, right? Do you agree with that? Okay, well then that's predicting the future. We can see that Coinbase is using Amazon Web Services. We know that Jeff Bezos is the richest man ever in the history of the world. All right? Right now, Jeff Bezos is picking up a phone, calling his assistant and saying, Paco, I need you to find me a mathematician who needs $1 billion. I need you to find me somebody who can solve this problem. And yes, in my mind, Jeff Bezos' assistant is named Paco. I don't know why. So he calls Paco and he says, listen, go to MIT and find me a genius that can fix this problem and tell him I'm going to give him a pile of money. We can see that that's going to happen. We can see that Jeff Bezos, right? Do you think that that guy is just going to sit around and say, you know what? I've made enough money. I can, not only am I set for the rest of my life, I can literally cure a disease and wipe it off of the face of the planet. That's how much money I have. You know what I mean? Do you think that that guy is right now trying to figure out a way to expand his Amazon Web Services for other companies and make the internet a safer place? Do you think that that guy's, his creation, Amazon.com, do you think he wants to protect that, or do you think he wants to leave it vulnerable? Do you think cybersecurity is at all a concern to him? Because if it is, do you think it's probably his primary concern? Do you think on his top 5 things of stuff I gotta do today, which one of those 5 things do you think Jeff Bezos figured out how to make the internet a safer place so that I don't get robbed and my customers don't get robbed and people in general don't get robbed? That guy's going to be putting money into cybersecurity. Do you think? I think so. I think I can safely look into the future and see where Jeff Bezos paid a bunch of money to a bunch of geniuses to make the internet a safer place. So how can we profit from that? Well, do you think these other platforms, so Coinbase is using Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services, I can pretty much guarantee is about to become a whole lot more robust. They're going to have a whole lot more mathematicians and rocket surgeons trying to figure out how to make it a safer place. And with that comes more clients. More clients means more money. More money means higher stock prices. There we go. Now we're finally getting to the money. So, as I recommended earlier, if you're looking at the cryptocurrency markets and you don't know what to do, all you're seeing is all these gains and people making money hand over fist, and 1,000% returns, but you don't feel confident? Okay, well, cool. Well, what do you feel confident in? Do you feel confident that if you're going to buy a coin at all, that coin should be correlated to a company that is trying to make the cyberspace a more secure place? Okay, then put your money on that. And if you still don't like that, then you can go over, you can call up Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, you can call Merrill Lynch, probably even E-Trade, and you can open up an account, a stock trading account if you don't have one. And you can probably buy Amazon. I think, yesterday I think it was at like just under $1,000 per share. But I think you could put money in Amazon and do quite well for yourself, because I'm predicting that they're going to have a whole bunch of new clients that are going to be buying big ticket items. Big ticket items. They're going to be going to Jeff Bezos and saying, look, how much do I got to pay you to make sure my clients don't get robbed? It's going to cost a lot of money. So that's my predictions. Again, you just listened to a whole podcast from a guy that was telling you that not only can you predict the future, but you do it on a regular basis. So as far as you know, I'm a crazy person. You shouldn't be taking any sort of investment advice from me. Enter the markets at your own risk. I always feel like I need to do a disclaimer. Anyways, thanks again, you guys. You've really you guys sent me some notes on Twitter, and every time I look at my numbers on my podcasting service, I see that I'm getting a lot of downloads, and it's everything. It's all due to you guys. So thanks again, and we shall see you tomorrow morning. Bye.